Greetings, YLAI fellows. This week's module, we're going to talk about the future of business and emerging technologies. Technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the blockchain. So, Arthur C. Clarke was a science fiction author who said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And what that means is it points to how hard it is to understand new technologies and how they might influence our lives. Part of that is because they can be disruptive. Another thing that's said about software is that software is eating the world, and what that refers to is how software ends up replacing a lot of pre-existing technologies and products that we've already had. A good example of that is the iPhone, right? A lot of people don't own cameras now because they have an iPhone. A lot of people don't own watches now because they have an iPhone that can tell them what time it is. This is what it means to be in an innovation economy. There's disruption happening. Now, emerging tech doesn't necessarily mean that it's new, right? Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, these technologies have been around for decades, but they seem to be reaching more critical mass within the marketplace. Others, like the blockchain, are quite new and have been around for around 10 years, maybe a little bit less. So one way to frame these new emerging technologies is the technology adoption life cycle. This concept was brought to us by a gentleman named Geoffrey Moore in a book called Crossing the Chasm. Crossing the Chasm introduces this notion of a life cycle of technology that describes how different users would approach a product. On one side, you've got innovators. These are the people who are the first people to buy the iPhone. The iPhone 1, right when it came out. It's untested, unreviewed, probably full of bugs. Those are the people who buy an iPhone. At the very opposite end, we have the laggards. These are the people who only buy an iPhone after it's been out for many, many years. It's not a risky purchase. And a lot of these people don't even use it for all the computing power it has. A lot of these people buy an iPhone just because other people have one. But where things get interesting is in between. Right after the innovators, we have a group called the early adopters. And that's where the chasm is referred to in the phrase crossing the chasm. The early adopters are the key group, and that if a new product doesn't get past this particular group, it doesn't penetrate the market at large. The chasm itself is if they can get past the early adopters. These are people who are forward-thinking consumers and they're willing to spend, but they follow in the wake of the innovators. The reason I'm sharing the technology adoption lifecycle is that it's useful to think about your customer base. If you're using some of these technologies to become part of your consumer offering, how you face the marketplace, you don't want to market your product with these new technologies the same way to everyone. When Apple started marketing the iPhone, they knew that innovators were going to purchase it, so they didn't worry about features that might appeal to laggard users, right? And if you watch the marketing of the iPhone, it's changed over the years. And so I encourage you to do the same thing when you think about if you were to implement one of these technologies into your business. Which brings us to the assignment. Nick and I have curated some videos. We've found elegant summaries of these technologies, of nanotech, quantum computing, AR, VR, AI, the blockchain. These videos make it easier to understand what exactly these technologies are and the implications they have for business. Your assignment is to watch some of these videos and then share in the thread some guesses about how these technologies might influence your space and how they could impact on your industry. Now, this is a tough job, right? It's hard to predict the future. But the exercise itself is meaningful. And if you're starting a blockchain company, that's such a risky maneuver, right? You're starting a company that might not exist in a few years because we don't know the fate of that technology. But very often it means that the upside potential is very high as well. So that's what this assignment is. It's a thought experiment to think about your offering, your product. How could it change with using some of these new technologies? So what we'd like you to do is watch some of these videos, think about how they might impact your market, and then share that in the thread. It could be a number of ways. It could change who the customer is. It could change how transactions happen. It could change how you understand customer data. There's a lot of different ways that these emerging technologies might be able to do that. So watch a few of these videos and share with us how one or more of these technologies might change your product. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.